was your weekend?
Doing good. A good sports Sunday. If you're listening to us on Monday, obviously, the Cleveland Browns won. But in my little bubble, Tottenham Hotspur won the London Derby 2-0. The Ohio Bobcats beat the crap out of the Cleveland State Vikings. And
They went on a 40-0 run, didn't they?
they did. And then the Columbus Crew are in the MLS final. So a big fun sports Sunday. In addition to some other things kind of going on that Evan knows what is driving me crazy right now, but this was a good bomb for me in terms of a Sunday. How was your weekend?
Not too bad. About Columbus real quick, is Caleb Porter coaching them or am I wrong?
He is Akron's own Caleb Porter. He did drop Akron in his interview on the broadcast as the game ended. So and Akron's own Darlington Nagbe, I believe a native of Akron and played at Akron, and a longtime Porter guy dating back to the Portland Timbers. Also a big part of the Columbus Crew. The more you know.
Neat. Very neat. I don't watch soccer at all. For those listening at home or checking us out for the first time, when I was a student at the University of Akron, I kind of just went because everybody else is doing it. Because it's a nationally ranked program, and it's criminal they didn't get to play at InfoCision. My thoughts. Welcome to my TED Talk. But to answer your question, my weekend was good. I built a gingerbread house and watched The Grinch, and I got some candles, and it's starting to smell a lot like Christmas. Chris, are you a candle connoisseur? Before we get started,
love candles. I mean, this shouldn't be probably like any of a lot of the cranberry ones are very good.
Oh, that's a bold one.
Like winter cranberry is like a vibe. It's a real nice vibe.
My girlfriend actually awesome, and it is
no free ads. I'm going to hide the brand, but Crisp Fall is like my vibe right now. No free ads, so not showing the brand. Hey, you know what? Burn as much in the office. You keep the vibes going. It's just about the vibe,
Speaking of vibing, Andre Drummond was full of vibes in camp, and you were not there for the press conference.
No.
His media availability on Zoom for the Cavs Media Day. The media is not present for it because of the COVID-19 situation in Ohio and how the numbers are skyrocketing. Please wear a mask if you're going to go out and about for some reason, but stay home if you can. But either way, I texted you after it, and for our regular listeners, I'm not the biggest Andre Drummond fan, Chris as well. I texted Chris saying, Andre Drummond is a gift. Not for his on-the-court actions, but for some of the things he said. Chris, as an advanced numbers guy, and we have an episode coming this week that's more advanced numbers heavy for those listening, how do you feel about a potential lineup that features Andre Drummond, JaVale McGee, and Larry Nance Jr.?
Okay, that is its own thing. But like when Andre is like, I can defend 1 through 5, JaVale can defend 1 through 5, and Larry can defend 3 through 5. That is like galaxy brain takes.
Stuff.
That's yeah. There are 3, like looking at some of the stuff I've been doing and preparing for the season. Like there are Drummond things. There are JaVale. There's actually a lot of reasons like I'm kind of intrigued by JaVale. And Larry obviously we're fans of here, but
well. To preface, JaVale McGee has not practiced the team yet.
Correct.
He, Kevin Porter Jr., Matt Mooney, and Levi Randolph are away from the team either due to COVID reasons or reasons that are being kept in-house by the Cavs. Proceed.
Yeah, if obviously just to say the quiet part out loud, Kevin Porter is still going through some of his legal issues, and he had a court date this week, and the marijuana charge was dropped, but he's still facing those other charges, and that's an uncomfortable situation, and the Cavs are figuring that out as we go. But with Drummond, like that is I have no interest in seeing that. If Drummond no, because like JaVale and Anthony Davis is already pushing the limits of like how you can play 2 bigs in the NBA, but like Anthony Davis can like shoot threes.
Say Anthony Davis is the transcendental power forward.
This is my point. Well, he's a center, but like Drummond is not that guy, and he doesn't shoot threes, and he doesn't like play make in the same way that AD does. They should never play together. They should literally play 0 minutes together. And how JB manages all of this is one of I think the big storylines we're following over the course of the season, because like he does have these literally big guys to kind of figure out how to best utilize, and Drummond's view of himself is, I think, going to be at odds with what the reality is, and that's not a new problem, but that's a problem if you're the Cavs.
It is a bit of a problem, but I do think we're actually going to see meaningful minutes played because another interesting nugget that kind of came out of this first week of training camp is JB offhand shared that I believe it was Chris Fedor who asked from the Plain Dealer / Cleveland.com about what his plans were for the rotations heading into like back-to-back scenarios where he's going to talk about it with Kevin and Andre, but he may sit them in back-to-backs. And let's say Andre doesn't sit, but Kevin does. You could start Larry Nance at the 4, but there's a very good chance we could see Andre Drummond and JaVale McGee on the floor together as well, just because, or maybe Dean Wade too, if they want to get funky with it. But I don't know how much they really want to lead on Dean Wade, or they make Isaac Okoro do the Jetty Osmond trial by fire and play a small ball 4, which I really hope they don't do that, as impressive as Okoro has apparently looked. But no, I think that's a real thing, and I don't want to see it happen. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be unforgiving. I don't remember off the top of my head how many back-to-backs Cleveland has this year, but they have one in the preseason coming up this weekend on Saturday and Sunday at home against the Pacers. But it's going to be an interesting turn of events when Kevin Love sits for wellness and maintenance, because JB made a good point, because a lot of people were upset that they suggested that Andre Drummond would sit. And JB was honest. He's always been an honest person whenever he's being interviewed or answering questions, where these guys haven't played 9-10 months of meaningful, like full contact 5-on-5 basketball. They could be playing pickup, they could be doing whatever, shooting around with their friends, or just kind of like shooting around on their own. But it's unfair, unrealistic, and just unprecedented to expect these guys to come in here and play a heavy workload and then come in the following night and play another heavy workload. And you don't want to, it's dangerous. That's the other thing he said. Like, you don't want to risk injuries, because these are valuable assets. And this season, I know Cleveland, their notions of making the playoffs are fleeting. I think it's noble that they want to feel that way. I think that's a good mentality to have, even if you aren't going to win. But if you want to get to that point, you need to have a fully healthy roster. And Kevin Love is injury prone. I know Andre Drummond has a bit of an Iron Man status in the league. But why would you want to risk it? And also, they are assets the Cavs are trying to trade. So you might want to protect your assets. And if a trade comes to fruition, you'd rather have a healthy player available than a player who might have some type of nagging injury, because you threw Kevin Love and Andre Drummond out there in a loss in a back-to-back to, like, let's say you're playing Chicago one night and you're playing, I don't know, like Milwaukee the following night, and you're throwing your better 2 players against Milwaukee, and they get injured because you're trying to compete. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think this honestly makes a lot of sense. I don't really have an issue with this. If they get into a real like hunt for the play-in tournament, and they one of their 9 back-to-backs comes like in a key stretch of that season, I think you'll have more pressure for Kevin and Dre to play in those games. They probably also have more incentive to play in those games if you're going to give them a chance to play in something meaningful, right? Like, if you're giving them a chance to actually compete for something, it's probably easier to get them to play back-to-backs. But I think JB saying that is sort of like a quiet acknowledgement that, like, okay, like we're looking at the bigger picture here. We're still kind of taking the broader look at what we're building here. And I think that's smart. And 2, I'm also really intrigued to see, like, one of the things you're hoping to get out of Kevin and Andre and Larry and any guy who's not like 23 and younger. So, like, basically Jetty is like the kind of like the old young vet, but everyone else you're sort of like,
it's funny.
And Jetty,
because I remember he said he looked at just the lineups and the roster for the training camp paperwork they had on hand. He's like, I'm really old now, because he saw Isaac Okoro was 19, and that just made me like, that's how I feel watching these players get drafted now.
This is how I feel when I see guys that are born in like 2000 and are like, and I'm just like, oh, okay. So, like, I think you're also looking at a situation where, like, and I'm actually kind of for this. Like, you obviously want Kevin and Andre and these older guys to really empower the young guys when you have them available, right? Like, you want Drummond to be the best version of himself as much as you can get out of him in terms of screening and diving to the rim and stuff. And you want Kevin to be a pick and pop, pick and roll partner. One of the things I've been watching is kind of a bunch of Colin Sexton tape, and he's actually really interesting coming off of screens. Kevin Love happens to be one of the best kind of passers from elbow situations and static positions in the NBA still. So that's a fun way to utilize them, but you also want to see what these guys are like independent of higher level, more proven talent. You want to, can Darius Garland make chicken out of chicken shit when he's running a pick and roll with Dean Wade? And that's no disrespect to Dean Wade, but defenses are going to not take Dean Wade as seriously as they still take Kevin Love. Go watch any Cavs game from last year. one of the few things that was always working for the Cavs is defenses are respecting Kevin Love as a shooter and as a player because he's Kevin freaking Love. Even if his reputation is weird and we're like, oh, his contract is really big and everything, teams are still game planning for him in a way they are not going to Dean Wade and Thon Maker and all these guys who are going to be eating up minutes when Kevin and Andre are sitting. And what Darius, what Colin, what Windler, what Kevin Porter Jr., what Isaac Okoro, all these guys do when those guys are sitting is going to tell us a lot about them as much as we are going to learn about them this year regardless. But like those games, let's say it's 6 of the 9 or 7 of the 9 back-to-backs that they don't play. Those specific games will tell us stuff as much as seeing Colin run a pick and roll and how he manipulates the screen or just ignores the screen tells us when he's playing with those guys. Those are to me, I think it makes sense if you're just developing this. You want to see what they're like independently and what they're like kind of without the kind of the quote unquote training wheels. Like if you're thinking you want to compare it to the Browns, if you want to evaluate Baker Mayfield, you want to see him actually do stuff in terms of rising in the pocket and being a good quarterback when Kevin Stefanski isn't like booting him out to give him easy passing lanes. You want to see these young guys thrive when they aren't being set up to succeed by everything else going on around them, I think.
No, I absolutely agree. And, if people are really up in arms about Andre Drummond sitting in back-to-back situations, you know what might help Andre have longevity this season, Chris?
It's Built Bar. And I gotta tell you, Built Bar remains just like an A+ sponsor of this whole network, but also an A+ best tasting protein bar. The new improved Built Bar is even deliciouser. It has 18 amazing flavors. That includes caramel brownie, cookies and cream, cherry barcia, lemon almond cheesecake, carrot cake, and apple almond crisp. There's also the 12 original flavors as well, including mint brownie and German chocolate and banana bread. These bars are covered in 100% chocolate. They're soft and easy to chew. They're great for the health-conscious guy. They help you lose or maintain weight while indulging in a delicious treat. They're low-calorie, low-sugar, and high-protein and high-fiber. For example, the Cherry Barcia one of the ones that I have in my cupboard right now, has 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs. That's just a great protein bar right there. Right now, Built Bar has a great deal for you. With the promo code LOCKEDON, you get 20% off your next order. Again, go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you get 20% off your next order. Free cooler with purchase while supplies last, and also be on the lookout for some other holiday-themed flavors that pop up as well. And before we hit the break here, I also want to let you know that tomorrow's show is with Tim from B-Ball Index. You maybe know him on Twitter as Crangius McBasketball, but he runs B-Ball Index, as I mentioned. And we got into a very deep Colin Sexton conversation, and I think you'll find it really, really illuminating in terms of what separates Colin and from some of the other young guards in the league, what he can get better at, why there is still a curve he's going to probably grow into if he kind of continues on the trajectory he's at. And also talked a little bit about JaVale McGee. And there's actually a really good argument Tim makes about how JaVale as a vertical threat is going to help. But Evan, why don't you send us in a break otherwise?
All right, we will be right back, and we're going to be talking a lot about the growth and potential of Darius Garland. We're hearing a lot of good things. We'll be right back with more Locked On Cavs. Okay, Chris. Again, everyone, please check out Chris's Deep Sex Talk with Crangius Basketball. And by sex talk, I mean Colin Sexton. But let's talk about the other guard and Sexton's playmate in the backcourt, Darius Garland. First off, shout out to Marla Ridnour. I'm surprised no one pointed it out sooner, but during his media availability, she pointed out that Darius was looking a lot bulkier and saying, like, your shoulders are huge. And Darius made a good point saying that he is still a kid growing into his body, and he's put on 17 pounds, whether it's a muscle, a fat, a mixture of muscle and fat, or just, a little bit of that clutch HGH, if you know what I'm saying.
Not actual HGH.
No, it's
just for the record. Just for the record, we are not accusing Darius of doing PEDs.
No, just it's always been a joke that LeBron is on PEDs, and by proxy, if you're a clutch client, you're a LeBron client.
Like the 2009 Orlando Magic.
Yeah, no, they're a bunch of dirty
2008,
yeah. Completely derailed me. Fun fact: that's the first time I broke a remote over sports. Is that Magic team?
Okay, I'll take it. Let me here. Well, I'll take this over to save you here. Darius Garland has been, as you mentioned, he looks bigger. You just go look at photos of him. He looks bigger. Like this is like hashtag muscle watch, like training camp edition or
it's
December
not like
edition.
Isaac Okoro muscle watch. Where I'm like, this kid is 19 years old and he's built like a Greek god. It's absurd.
Yeah. Darius looks like he spent the time working
Like
literally
I
just to get bigger, get stronger,
like I
and
said, he
put
looked
time
like
use.
he looked like he looks like a grown man, or not a grown man, but he looks like he's growing into being a grown man. Last year he looked like a kid compared to what he looks like now, and that's exciting. And he talked about, like, somebody asked him, like, did you lose any of your speed? Well, first off, Darius Garland was never really a fast or athletic player, but apparently he gained some burst according to him. And Chris, you heard an interesting nugget you shared with me before we came on here.
Yeah, basically like everything you're hearing about Darius is that he's looking like fantastic in practices. Like he looks much more explosive. Like he's like just doing damage at the rim in a way he might not have been last year. And every buzz about him that you can go back to from when he was working out with Robert Covington in Nashville or Tennessee, I should say. I can't remember if it's exactly Nashville, but in that area of the country, he was just like apparently looking like significantly better, significantly healthier, significantly more smooth. And frankly, like that's like a sign that if you want to be excited about the Cavs this particular season, that is a big reason to do it, because there's already stuff that they should hand him the keys a little bit to. Like you should hand him creation. You should hand him, like Sexton is I think you move him off ball a little bit more. You let him come off screens and use that speed to his advantage. Darius has just got the vision to kind of set those things up in a really nice way if you want to go that route. But Darius coming in and doing stuff like dunking at people and being explosive and showing like another level of athleticism is just a sign that like he is actually trying to level up in year 2, and he's not just gonna like float around and like he took year 1 and is like, this wasn't good enough. I obviously have excuses I could make and I could just come back and do the same thing. He didn't do that as far as we can tell, and he's ramping it up to another level. And to me, Evan, he is without question the Cavalier that I'm most interested in seeing this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Kevin Porter Jr. might have been that guy. Just the stuff going on with him colors that, and I know how the organization is a little frustrated with him. I think colors that. Like I don't even know what his exact kind of role is going to be this year as we start off the year. I think he's going to have to earn some of that goodwill back, it seems like. He's obviously not even practicing right now. But Darius is going to be a starter in all likelihood. He is going to come in and he's going to be given a lot to do, and he's going to have a lot of responsibility. And whether he's ready for that or whether he can improve on last year or whatever the outcome is, it's one of the most impactful things about this Cavs season and about the Cavs over the next couple of seasons as we kind of think about them building from where they are right now.
Yeah. To your point about Kevin Porter Jr., I'm still excited to see the on-the-court product, but I don't know how much we're going to see because, like you said, he has to earn a lot of the trust back, and not just the organization, but the coaching staff as well. I think KPJ might be playing at the lower end of the rotation. He might be seeing more Dante Exum minutes at this point, a lot more JaVale McGee time. You're going to see more Dance, obviously, to begin with. Maybe Osman or Okoro, depending on how the training camp battle shakes out. And that's an interesting dynamic as well, as who's going to be starting, because apparently Windler's in the thick of it too, and that's another player who's going to be in the rotation. But Darius really is I know Colin Sexton is a lot of fun. He is the most exciting young player on the Cavs roster right now because there's like tangible evidence of watching him grow as a player. And like, shout out to Chris's lookalike Joe Pera, but he said the most pleasurable thing about being a music teacher is you can actually hear your students learning. We're watching Colin Sexton grow and blossom, where I was super down on the pick, and part of it at the time was it's part of the Kyrie trade, and I was a big Kyrie guy, so I was a little tainted by that, and he took number 2, so that kind of felt disrespectful. And then I also, just in the back of my mind, didn't really know the full context of the situation. I was a bit more casual back when that happened, but when LeBron left, I thought, well, if they traded the Brooklyn pick, maybe LeBron would still be here, and now I'm stuck with this kid who can't shoot 3-pointers, and he takes long twos. But Colin Sexton's growth has been tangible and a lot of fun to watch. But if Darius Garland, it's still a bit of a mystery box with him. There's a lot of uncertainties. He could blow up in spectacular fashion in the worst way too, mind you, because there was a lot of low points in Garland's rookie year. But I think, like you said, he's done a lot of things to fully commit himself to getting healthy. He shared with the media he hired a private chef, and he's no longer eating fast food and candy, and he's trying to maintain and treat his body right, which is a good thing. And I think he said hiring a private chef is the best thing he's invested in his career, which is a mature thing to say as well. And if I was a millionaire too, I too would hire a private chef because I'd love to have 5-star meals all the time. But
but not even that. If you just talk to like people in the health, well, yes, but you also talk to people in the health field, and like the diet is your weight and your health and your your ability to get in whatever kind of shape you're getting to, a lot of it is sculpted in the kitchen. It is the working out matters, the burning the calories matters, the kind of exercise you're doing, like making time for mobility and in rehab and all these things, and how you do all these things really matters. But like you could be running like doing 2-a-day workouts and lifting and getting up shots every day, but you could just be eating like crap all the time, and you're gonna just be soft and out of shape and like have a cheat meal every once, like have some French toast or like some candy or like like go to Swenson's or something. But like like having someone to
meals. I was really worried about some like conventional food was your cheat food. So.
My go-to cheat meal is one of my go-to cheat meals is like when I make like a big breakfast, like a French toast, like some bacon, like that, the little extras like syrup. Like it's just, I love breakfast. Breakfast food is king. If there's any like local diners that want to sponsor the show, like not good for my waistline, but good for our pockets. But
if you're listening.
Yeah, hello on Rockside Road.
Right by the practice facility.
I used to go there. I actually eat there. Like that's my day job office, which now people are going to be able to figure out where I work, which is weird. And I go to eat there a decent amount. Always get breakfast because I'm just a psycho. But Evan, I wanted to ask you this: just if I'm not a psycho, except for my peppermint tea. But if you're picking Cavs that are going to dictate the flow of this season, Darius is my number one for that.
Oh, my Drummond's my number one because
I'm just looking. Yeah, okay. But if in terms of the flow of the season, if he's not your number one, where is Darius on that list for you?
Darius is 2 or 3, depending on what we get from Colin Sexton. Because I didn't get to ask JB this question over the weekend, but I did ask. Shout out to you. It was a really good question to ask him. Like, what kind of growth does he want to see from Colin? And JB flat out said, like, playmaking. I want to see playmaking. I want to see him use his athleticism to finish better. A lot of the stuff that you and I have lined up in the past, saying, like, what tangible improvements do we want to see from Colin Sexton heading into his 3rd year, which is weird to think. But Darius, I'd have it 2 or 3, depending on what you get with Sexton. But, like, you can flip-flop those, too, just in terms of, like, I don't know. If Darius pops from the first few games, I'm going to feel validated and like feel better about defending this pick. But I know there's a lot of people that are very shaky and their faith is shaky on what Darius is. Just fans, not in the organization. The organization cannot think higher of Darius Garland. He's still an untouchable player in most senses. I mean, obviously, if the right trade came along, it would be remiss of Cleveland not to explore that avenue. But him, Larry Nance, and Colin Sexton, I feel like the Cavs would have to have like a substantial offer to part ways with any of them. I will say that.
Yeah, I just think Darius, if you just think about what he is, I just think like what his skill set already kind of shown to be, just makes him like the obvious guy to fill a role that needs to be filled on this team. They need a guy to step up, eat possessions, and kind of facilitate a lot. And even if he's going to take like some pull-up threes and do some really interesting stuff as a scorer, they need him to be the guy that is kind of making the ball move. And like, I think Colin can get better at that. I was texting you on Sunday about like, I was watching some tape, and like, if Colin can just stop, like,
not just on a Sunday, on a Sunday morning. And I'm like, bless your heart.
I don't know, pandemic. What else am I supposed to do?
Pandemic C. Co-host of Locked On Cavs, everyone.
Well, hope I'm better than playoff P. But Sexton like does this thing where like I'm like the clip that has stuck in my brain is like the Spurs game before the season hiatus. He's running a pick and roll with Kevin Love, like, and Kevin comes to set the screen, and Colin is just like doesn't even wait for Kevin to set the screen, right? Like he just like is like, I'm just gonna go. Like, I'm just going to go. And he ends up scoring, and, like, the outcome, it's fine, but I don't think the process is great. And he's never, like, even though he has successful moments, like, out of the pick and roll and out of isolation and stuff, it is not always, like, the process you necessarily would want to see. Like, the decision-making isn't there. Darius is already ahead of him on that. Darius knows how to, like, manipulate things. He's just a more patient player. Yeah. And, like, you can succeed either way. Colin is definitely the better player right now. But in that one area, Darius is really interesting. And if they're going to like let him run the offense and facilitate for like if he has to be the guy that needs to feed Andre, that needs to feed Kevin, that needs to like get Isaac Okoro clean looks, like there's a lot on Darius. And like also I'm just thinking, so for the future, he's just so clearly number one for me. But we'll talk about some other guys as we kind of move forward here too.
No, for sure. And just as a good analogy, since the Browns did win, and it's the first time they've had a winning season in 13 years or 17 or 13 years. The number's foggy in my head, but either way, it's been a long time since the Browns had a winning season. Colin Sexton is Kareem Hunt to Darius Garland's Nick Chubb, where Darius is a lot more patient of a player, where Colin is a lot more of a straight line attack player. And I feel like that's a fair comparison. And maybe instead of Sexland, we should call him Thunder and Lightning going forward. That's a fun combination name for them.
Yeah, I can get down to it. Yeah.
But let's take a quick break, Chris, and we will be right back with more Locked On Cavs. We're going to be talking more about the Cavs plans heading into the season. Chris and I's thoughts on that. But yeah, no, stay tuned, and we'll be right back. The wait is almost over. The 2020-2021 NBA season is almost here, and the Locked On NBA podcast will get you ready with a special week of shows beginning December 14th. Get previews of every team, including Locked On Cavs co-hosts Chris Manning and Evan Damerel, division by division, from all 30 of our Locked On local experts, including us, which I just said. Plus, waiver wire additions from Locked On Fantasy Basketball, rookies to watch from Chad Ford, and predictions on each division from Rejecting the Screen. Subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we are back with more Locked On Cavs. I am Evan Damerel. He is Chris Manning. We run this show 5 days a week. If you're checking us out on WKYC, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So thank you for joining us. But Chris, the Cavs announced their COVID-19 regulations, their health and safety protocol for this season. And just up front, they are only allowing 300 fans in the stands, and it's going to be first family members of members of the organization, whether it's players, coaches, associates, anybody really, and then it will be season ticket holders, the Wine and Gold United members, and then corporate sponsors. And from what I've gathered, the public will not be able to attend Cavs games this year, and I honestly think this is the right thing to do.
Yes, I do want to say this though. I'm waiting on the FOIA request from the Ohio Department of Health. So if someone is, I do actually do journalism. It's like a thing that I actually do. Hello, people. We're not just podcasters. We actually do the legwork here. But I'm pretty comfortable in saying, I don't know the exact number, but I do think the Cavs asked to have more than 300 people.
Yeah, they did, because for context, the Rocket Mortgage FieldHouse, they gutted. Well, Quicken Loans Arena used to be one of the biggest arenas in the NBA, and they cut out a substantial amount of...
20,562 was the old number, and I think it's now
306.
Yeah,
I wrote about a story for it, and that's how I have the number at the top of my head.
Yeah, we actually both have been. Yeah,
it's the Budweiser section they cut out 2,000 seats for, but that's okay. But,
I think I'm gonna
300.
Yeah, it's 1.6% of the max audience. I think is the number. I'm gonna check that because I did the math the other day, and I actually was tweeting too much and whatever. And I can't find it right away. But I'm pretty sure that is close to the number. But the Cavs are also very much from a business perspective. I have a story that's coming out this week. Evan knows I've been working on it for a while. About a wine partnership that the Cavs are doing with this brand called Knocking Point. It's founded by one of the guys who founded it is Stephen Amell, who played Arrow on the CW show Arrow. The Cavs are really betting big on wine, and there's a new wine bar opening up at the arena. Yeah, they're hoping to have fans in the arena to take advantage of this, and they're going to have a direct-to-consumer model part of this as well. But a big part of this is there's going to be a Knocking Point wine bar on the ground level of Rocket Mortgage FieldHouse, and that's not I'm sure they're it's not they're betting on this for not just now, but for the next season and whenever you can get fans back. It's notable that Dr. Anthony Fauci said that it's late summer at the earliest when you're going to be able to see fans in full arenas, and that's sort of assuming the vaccine and everything kind of goes in plans and enough people take it and everything. There's a lot of hoops you're jumping through. But yeah, you're not gonna if you want to go see a Cavs game, that's not gonna happen right now, and it is a call. It's you can hopefully watch them at home. I know the options to watch them in market right now are a little different than they were due to some rights issues and stuff. But
as someone who has cable, I had no idea that the whole AT&T streaming service and YouTube TV and Hulu.
I literally had to leave the streamer I was using to do the cable like streaming thing now. It's because of it's just the most bizarre thing.
It's way too dangerous now to have a cable guy come in and set up your stuff because you can't account for any of that stuff.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, I'm doing
time.
It's a weird time, but it's also just if you think about this in terms of like just what is going on, it is just like this is starting amid the pandemic, and I think one of the things that we like the NBA protocol is like there's a lot of like there's been the stories coming out about it have been like there's these massive number of pages in these rule books, and like the protocols are very strict and all these things, and that's really good. I need to see how this is implemented. Like we need to see how this actually works, and like if guys are gonna like break them. You know, like it's someone is gonna get COVID at some point, and they're gonna miss like 2 weeks. It's gonna happen.
The
like
Blazers shut down their facility because people tested positive.
Right, and the Warriors delayed practice because they had 2 players test positive at the beginning of their thing. Like this is going to happen, especially as guys are
missing 2 rotation pieces possibly because of COVID.
Right, and then you have a guy coming in. You have like the James Harden situation with whatever is going on in Houston, and him celebrating his birthday.
That's grossly irresponsible, James.
Yeah, like also like. Why honey buns? Like why are you just doing little baby like with just like giving him a ton of honey buns? Like maybe he loves honey buns, but that's like a really unhealthy birthday gift. Like what are you doing? There's just so much about this that is just going to be continuing to evolve.
Household like my parents, where they said we're not going to give you cash outright, but we'll give you money in a car, but there has to be something attached to it. So maybe that's what James Harden's doing. He's like, here's $100K. But here's some honey buns too, so it's just not
in the Prada bag that's like probably costs like $50,000 or something.
Yeah.
But this is just like an ongoing thing, and you've seen other teams. I'm sure people have seen other teams have been like, we're not doing fans, like the Chicago Bulls. I think the Denver Nuggets, like various other teams have been like, we're not doing fans, and the Cavs are in the small minority of this. They're in the minority of NBA teams that are going ahead with fans. And they're not really having fans. Like as far as having people in the arena go, like it is to whoever deserves credit. I don't really want to know if I want to give the Cavs necessarily credit for that. Like it's at least like you're still having people coming in from the outside, but in theory, they aren't going to have like interactions with players, like except for the family member. Like there is like still like some risk, and I understand like we need to assume risk, and there is just going to be some part of that with going forward here and doing anything right now. It's just unfortunately part of the situation we're in. But the Cavs having 3 injured people is notable, and it was notable that also like in the press release announcing it, like they were like, here's the 90 however many things. 90 is not the right number, but like here's a ton of things we're doing to try to be safe. But I know from talking to various people on the business side that there's a ethos that they believe that people want to come back, but they want to do it safely. And there isn't a some people do want to come back and do stuff. And this isn't quite that, but it's something.
It's something, and I do worry about a team like Cleveland because it is hard to be financially viable in a small market for an NBA team. But if you're a small market team that isn't necessarily relevant in your own town, like this is something I've been preaching from the mountaintops for a while now. The Browns will always be number 1 in this town, win or lose. The Indians have the Cleveland baseball team have so many die-in-the-wool boomer fans that will support them till the day they die, and then they pass that on to their kids. Cavs fans are kind of the upswing of Cavs fans are kind of starting with our generation, where we got into it when LeBron was drafted, and now we're settling down and having kids, and we're going to pass on this suffering to those children, and then they'll pass on this misery to their children, and so on. So it's a bit of a long con. So the Cavs are going to need to get other revenue sources, and maybe this TV snafu is going to be a big thing as well. I'm working on a story with Fox Sports Ohio about that, and just kind of the other restrictions they're taking when it comes to their older broadcasters, which that will be something we can discuss once I kind of have a clearer picture of that. But no, the Cavs really laid out like a very long listing plan where like their HVAC system is able to neutralize coronavirus by 99.92%. Granted, there still is a 0.08% chance that you can catch it with that. And then the self-screening thing is a big thing. I do wonder if they're going to check temperatures or things like that when they're coming into the arena, but it's more so you can go to concessions, you can have your mask off while eating, but you have to stay contained in your area. You're given a set pass. So the Cavs are taking the right safety regulations and restrictions, and Clearly, the state of Ohio agreed to it, and I'm sure they worked at a federal level as well with this just to make sure everything is properly taken care of. But it's going to be interesting to see. I could also see this completely being shut down if like there is a bad outbreak, if like a bunch of fans catch it, or some players catch it, or coaches or staff members as well catch it. Like I could see the Cavs putting the kibosh on this and just saying no fans at all. Everyone watch from home, and that's unfortunate, but it's also probably the right thing to do as well. It's a fine line you have to tread with this.
Yeah, the last thing I will just say is I think that if you are looking at this with from the just also I hope, and I'm sure the Cavs are going to do it, but I think we think about this from a fan perspective and people getting to go to games again. I just for the life of me, I hope the workers that are going to be taking on risk by going to work at the arena. I'm sure a lot of like the security people that I've known, that I've gotten to know at games, and the concession people, I'm sure they all want to be back at work and have some sense of normalcy. I hope they also get to be safe as well. I hope I hope people, if they're going to games, they are going to take that seriously too, because those people are, taking on a risk as well. But COVID, guys, it's a part of our reality.
Yeah, no, and as always, please, 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 please wear a mask if you go out in public. Practice proper social distancing. And Chris, is there anything you want to say to the fine folks at home before we get out of here?
No, everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in on WKYC. Thanks to our sponsor, Built Bar. And well, again, back tomorrow, I'll be with Tim from B-Ball Index. And guys, Cavs basketball, guys and girls, Cavs basketball Saturday, it's back, and I'm pumped.
As Joe Tate might have said if he didn't retire, it's basketball time at the Rock on Saturday. So
yeah,
Chris and I'm looking forward to watching them in action. And Chris and I will be doing a deep dive probably after both games, and we'll talk about both of them on WKYC the following Monday, and then we'll do a little bit of a dive into when they play the Knicks as well. And then before you know it, goodbye, golly gosh, they're going to be back against the Hornets. But until next time, check us out anywhere you find your podcast. You're checking us out on WKYC. If you're a regular listener, thank you again. Let us know if we're on your Spotify Unwrapped, by the way. I'll be more than happy to give you a shout out in the future. But until next time, go Cavs.